All right. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Heromakers Podcast. And Anne, how are you doing up in Toronto?
I'm doing okay. We're under our third wave, so we're all under lockdown. But vaccines are here.
They are here. I get my first one on Friday. And
I got mine last week.
yeah. And Julie, our guest, just got hers. This is exciting. I feel like it was crazy because I was driving yesterday and all the roads, like it was like back to rush hour. And I don't know, I had this like little spring of joy in my heart because I was like, oh, that's like a sign that that people are starting to get out and do things again. And I never thought I would like rush hour. And I probably won't. Ask me next week, I won't. But for today, it's good.
I don't know if you guys have made the same observation in the US, but in Canada, they said that all the Gen Xers, as soon as we aged in, like the vaccine was able for people who are Gen X, we just flooded the websites to like register for the vaccine.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The day after I had an appointment the day after I was available or eligible.
It's so great. It's so
Yeah.
great. Okay. And that's our guest, Julie. So, Anne, I am very excited about our episode today because we're talking about something that, Julie, I don't know much about boxing, but I know people who have fought cancer. And you're combining the two. And this reminds me, Anne, of our first episode that we had of the Heromakers podcast way back in September, where we talked to Chuck and Hannah Keels.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck and Hannah are both cancer survivors. And if you guys haven't listened to the episode, I encourage you to go back and listen. Their story is amazing. And if you follow them on Instagram, Hannah was, kind of had another bout of cancer. And so she was in the hospital, and like they're still being like incredible storytellers and motivational speakers, and just love them. So and Julie, I feel like we've had a number of people here on the podcast who have dealt with cancer and other kind of really serious illnesses. So we love that. Like we love the intersection here of really rough things that people go through and then fighting them in really unique ways. So so Julie, let me officially welcome you. So Julie and Kelly, you are co-founder of this organization called Haymakers for Hope, which I have to admit, Julie, I had to look up what Haymakers meant. So can you just quickly tell us what Haymakers is?
Sure. What the word Haymakers is?
Or just what is a Haymaker? Yeah.
A Haymaker is essentially, it's like the Hail Mary throw in football, but it's the Hail Mary punch of the sport of boxing. It's, you just kind of close your eyes and put every single thing you have into it, and just, that's it. It's you're going for it. It's everything you have left, and you're just going for it. And that's a Haymaker.
What a great term. Yeah. Okay. So Julie, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. And you're coming to us from, you said, Massachusetts. So
yes.
What is the weather like in Massachusetts now that we're in?
Today it's beautiful. It's like 60 degrees. Yeah. It's sunny. It's nice. Yeah. I mean, last week it was snowing, so anything could change.
That's what
it's New England.
Yeah. We talked to somebody who is over in Connecticut, and he was saying the same thing. So Julie, get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself, and just where did you grow up, and did you always have a love of boxing? Like, what? Tell us, just your journey.
So I'm 41. I grew up in Dedham, Massachusetts, which is a suburb just right outside of Boston. My two parents, I have two siblings. I grew up absolutely loving sports. I was a tomboy. All my friends, this is just all we did. We would play, pick up basketball, baseball, softball, street hockey, ride bikes, do dumb things, go down massive hills on rollerblades, just anything to keep ourselves occupied, entertained outside of our house, because our parents, didn't want us home. And just, we played tons of town sports, and I just love sports. I love them. My grandfather was a big boxing fan, but that was really, as a kid, that was my only introduction to the sport. But for me as an athlete growing up, and then through high school, soccer was, for the most part, my main focus. And in other sports, I was always just a little bit more aggressive than a lot of the other kids, even at a younger age. But in the 80s, the only real combat sport for kids was karate, but girls doing karate in the 80s, it wasn't, so I didn't have the opportunity, but that was just how I played on the soccer field or on the basketball court. And, then I went to college. I graduated from BC, and right after graduation, in the spring, I had started to have like night sweats, and I was getting like a weird rash on my body. And, I went to the doctor, and I have very sensitive skin. So they just thought, oh, maybe you changed your detergent or whatever. And they ran some blood work, and it came back, negative. So they didn't think anything of it. And then next thing I know, after graduation, I found a lump in my neck. And I was like, honestly, it was like it grew overnight. It was like the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. I was like, there's no way it was there yesterday. It wasn't there yesterday because I would have noticed it. It was that significant. And I went back to the doctor, and they did a chest x-ray, and something looked suspicious. So then they did a biopsy, and I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma 3 months post graduating from college. So I was diagnosed when I was 22. And then I went through, chemo and radiation, and got a clean bill of health in 2002. But it was when I was diagnosed, it was pretty rough. I was diagnosed September 13th of 2001. So September 11th happened. September 12th, I went to the wake of one of my really good friends. His mother passed away from cancer. And then I was diagnosed on the 13th. And then the next week we found out a friend of mine from college didn't get out of the trade center. So it was a pretty heavy, intense time.
Yeah. Did you have, does this run in your family, or was it just kind of out of the blue that?
Hodgkin, no, there's no real connection. I mean, my family has a history of cancers, but there's nothing that it's not like there's one disease. It's not one specific. Yeah. So it was really, I just graduated from college. I was, for the most part, I was feeling perfectly fine. I wasn't feeling fatigued. I'm in college, I'm writing a 50-page thesis. So it's not like I was fatigued, anything abnormal. And it was really the only symptoms I had were months prior, when I had night sweats and like a bad rash. And that was it.
Okay. And so what did your recovery journey look like from there? Like within your treatment journey, was it long? Was it short?
So I was scheduled for 6 months of chemo. And I actually responded to it really, really well. So we went from 6 down to 4. But it took a pretty serious toll on my immune system. So I actually had to take a month completely off. And just, during chemo, I had to give myself a shot to boost up my white blood cell count. So I had to then take a month off to try and like rebuild a little bit of my immune system. And then I went into 6 weeks of radiation. Yeah. And then after that, it was, just constant checkups and kind of just, rolling with it and staying positive.
Okay.
I had a question about, obviously you had to do the physical healing, you know what I mean? The process of like healing, but what about the emotional part of that as well, with like 9/11 and your friends?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, so when I was diagnosed and when I was getting treated, I got treated at an amazing hospital in Boston, Beth Israel. But because I was my age, I was 21. So I wasn't really like a full-blown adult. I mean, I was an adult. I had, just graduated college and so on, but I wasn't a full-blown adult, but I also wasn't a pediatric patient. So I was kind of in this like weird limbo area. So I was being treated on a floor where everyone was in their 60s or older. And then there was me. So I kind of just went into autopilot a little bit. And I think like my family and friends as well sort of had that shock mentality that it was even happening. So they kind of went into autopilot. And I don't know if you know anything about Irish families, but let's just not talk about anything and let's just go. So that's pretty much how I handled it. And it didn't really fully, the magnitude of the situation didn't really hit me until kind of I'd say the following years where I really started to get, pretty depressed. And, I graduated from college. My life was supposed to be starting, and I was, all my friends were going to work and were having these opportunities. And I was, going to the hospital. So it was a little challenging, but the good thing was post-treatment, that's when I found the sport of boxing. So, and for me, that was very much like, that was the medicine that I needed, just like I needed chemo and radiation. Like that was what really got me on a path to healing myself. So I was very, very lucky to find that sport.
Okay. So tell us about that. Like, who introduced you to it? You said your grandfather was.
Yeah. My grandfather, and again, just having a history of sports and being an athlete. And I remember I lived in Brooklyn with an ex-boyfriend of mine, and we were walking over the Brooklyn Bridge, and there's this huge sign for Gleason's boxing gym, famous boxing gym in New York City. And I said, "Ooh, I want to learn how to box." And he never knew me as an athlete. He met me in college, but that's all I ever did before. And he was like, "Oh, you can't do that." And I was like, "What?" And I said, "You know what? I can't do that." So then I signed up to do a marathon. So I signed up to run a marathon to support Team in Training, which is a fundraising part of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I had lymphoma. I said, I want to do my part to give back. I'm healthy. I'm able-bodied. Let's do it. And my boyfriend at the time was also like, "You're out of your mind." Well, I ran the marathon, and he and I broke up shortly after. And I remember one day, and then I signed up to do a triathlon. And I remember one day riding my bike to work, and I rode my bike past a boxing gym, not Gleason's, but another one in Manhattan. And I said, "I'm going to go in there." And I went in there, and I just absolutely fell in love. I originally started going in simply for fitness. I had no vision of ever competing. I just wanted to just sweat and, get moving and have something, hold myself accountable for something to do after work. And I just absolutely fell in love.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I was thinking of, Julie, it's like your boyfriend. I mean, I just think of like how him doubting, like, "You can't do that. You can't."
Yeah. He just knew different. He knew a different me, I had never, I guess just, and I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that me anymore. I just kind of took a chance and said, I'll just, give it a shot.
Just try it. Yeah. Okay. So then so you're enjoying the sport and you're doing it in your spare time, and it's bringing you joy. And then how did it become more of a competitive thing for you?
There's something oddly progressive about boxing, and there's, I think, certain people, certain personalities that you first go in, and it's when you first start, everyone starts the same way. Fundamentals, you kind of look like a newborn deer. You're in front of a mirror. You're trying not to make eye contact with yourself because you think you look so foolish, and you think everyone's staring at you, but in reality, everyone is. I was there not that long ago. So just keep going. And you start to learn your punches, you work on your footwork. And then you move up to hitting a bag. Bag doesn't hit back. After you hit the bag, you graduate to mitts. Someone's holding mitts. They can hit you back. And then the next step, if you want, is to get in the ring and to spar with someone. And I kind of had this drive and really a curiosity to just see what I could do, what I was capable of. And I think sometimes what keeps people from, making that leap is just being afraid and knowing that I had already kind of faced a pretty significant fear, that the unknown, the uncertainty about what was going to happen, and still needing to constantly go to the doctor and have checkups. It's still in the back of your mind. I just kind of was like, what's the worst that could happen? I break my nose, or, it's not that bad in the grand scheme of things when you compare it. And I just I just wanted to give it a shot and see how far I could take it. And I had amazing training, great support. I was able to win the New York City Golden Gloves in 2009. And then I actually had shoulder surgery right after that tournament. I didn't think I was going to be able to bounce back from that. I had about 8 months of treatment for that. It was pretty bad. And then I remember being in the gym and someone said to me, oh, anybody can win the Golden Gloves once, you have to win it twice if, you think you're big stuff. And I was like, oh, all right, well, let's give it a shot. So, I trained and got the weight off from surgery. And I was lucky enough. I had some hard fights, but I was lucky enough to pull it out and win again in 2010. And yeah.
So, okay. So just really quickly, like give us an inside look at, like training for boxing. I mean, is it like half mental and then half physical? Is it like, what is the dominant thing that, kind of helps you to really succeed, and to, just to kind of keep going in boxing?
I'd say it's predominantly, you have to be in great condition, and boxing training for a bout, especially for new fighters that actually compete in Haymakers events, they do 3 2-minute rounds. So it's 6 minutes of fighting. You do 2 minutes, it's a 2-minute break, 2 minutes, 6 minutes of fighting. They train for 4 months. Yeah. The amount that it goes in terms of condition to prepare you for boxing for 6 minutes is really, really intense. So while there is this incredible physical capacity needed in order to compete, the mental fortitude that you need to even get through the training, to be disciplined enough to keep your diet in check, to be able to get up in the morning. If your coach tells you, I want you getting up to do 2 miles, 3 miles every day, but you have to be to work at 6:30, you have to have that discipline to get up at 4:30 in the morning, sometimes in the pitch dark, and do that run or do what you need to do, and just really dedicate yourself to the experience. And so it does take a lot. It does take a mental toll. You become consumed with it. And even the first time fighters, like in Haymakers, they find themselves, they just turn themselves over to the experience for that 4 months leading up to it, because they know they're never going to get those 4 months back. And everyone remembers their first bout. In some instances, people compete in Haymakers and they're one and done, but we've had some people, mostly women, go on to continue to compete, which is really incredible to see people do that.
What's interesting is that I think of the fact that, like when you set goals and there's all these like little mile markers along the way. So it's not just the end goal, right? It's like the whole journey that you're on to get there, and like staying committed to that. And so it just reminds me about, kind of life. And that's how life is, right? When it's not about like where we're going to end at the end of the day, it's about like, okay, what are the steps we're taking to become the kind of person we want to be, to become the kind of person who makes the world better, who does good, right? And so have you learned anything kind of about that or about yourself in this process? I'm
in a little just compared to what you were saying. I always tell the fighters before fight night, I say, fight night it's a party. That's where you get to go and show everyone in the ring, all your friends, all your family who've been supporting you. You stop going to barbecues or not meeting friends for drinks on a Friday night, because this is what you were doing instead. So it's a party. Show everyone what you have been doing. Show your coach, you listen to them, pour your heart out in there. Like there's that saying, like, leave it in the ring. Fight your heart out. You can't take it with you. You've got to do it. It's all 4 months, all rolled up into 6 minutes. Yeah. So I've learned, it's amazing the different people that you get to meet through the opportunity like this, but also the sport of boxing. You meet so many different kinds of people, all walks of life, all races, all religions, all nationalities. And you're in a boxing gym together, because of one common theme, and it's the sport and the love of boxing. And you learn so much about life. You learn so much about fear, and it's really just, it's very boxing is oddly therapeutic. You would think that it wouldn't be, but you know, after you're done sparring with your friends in the gym, it's, especially for girls, it's just like you hug it out.
I could totally see how it's therapeutic. I mean, it's also probably a way just to like, you know, kind of get out energy and frustrations and get stronger. I mean, there's so many positive elements.
You find this incredible connection with people that I don't necessarily know that you experience going to a regular gym where you're just kind of lifting weights or playing racquetball or whatever. It's a little bit more intense. But you learn a lot about people and a lot of what drives people. And for those who do Haymakers, they're exceptional. They don't have a background in boxing at all. They are taking on taking on 4 months of training, along with agreeing to hit a fundraising minimum. And what drives people to do this, in some instances, it's to fight in honor of someone who had cancer, to fight in memory of someone who had cancer, sometimes it's simply just for a challenge for themselves. You know, they've run a marathon or they've done a triathlon, and they're kind of looking for that next level. And even if that is what's led them to us, even if it's just a challenge, it's going to challenge everyone. But if that's what you're going after, at the end of the day, you are still fundraising to support cancer research, awareness, survivorship, care, and that is going to change someone's life. And so whatever it is that leads someone to us, who they are when they walk in the door for orientation and who they are when they step out of that ring on fight night are two completely different people. And I would, you know, I don't think that there would be, out of almost 800 people who've gone through the program, I don't think anyone would really argue with me about that. You know, we've had people completely change their lives, change their profession due to Haymakers. We've had people completely, you know, stop drinking alcohol or go into recovery, or just change their lifestyle, change altogether. And knowing that, you know, you're making a difference and challenging yourself. You know, we try to think of ourselves as like a big family, and just trying to put it out in the world and doing what we can, and by using the sport that has given me so much. So feel lucky.
I can imagine, like, it's already physically grueling, right? So you already like commit yourself to this like physical like beating. And then also with the Haymakers and the raising funds for cancer, it's like an emotional attachment too. So, and then, like, I could just imagine it just be like very intense, like you said, but also intimate. Like you just really get to know people on a deeper level.
Yeah, and boxing in general with your opponent is very intimate. Someone once said boxing, especially when you have like a really, really tough bout, it's beautiful because your souls touch, is what someone said to me once. And I was like, at first you're like, what? And then you think about it and you're like, oh, whoa, like you just had this incredibly intimate moment, or minutes with this person whose fundamental goal at this moment is to hurt you. That is their number one goal, is to hurt you in any way they can legally in front of a crowd of 2,000 people. And yet it's unreal. And just, you know, being able to give back and try to help out, because I've seen firsthand what the disease can do to people. And neither of you have been to an event, but what we do is special, different than like a professional boxing event, is who we have carrying our ring cards are not your standard person holding a ring card at a professional bout. We actually have survivors or people that are going through treatment. And the reason we do that is to really to celebrate them, to, you know, we make the announcement of whether they're going through treatment or what they're currently being treated for, or what they're in recovery from, or in remission. And it's really just a reminder to everyone, because you can get kind of lost in the moment. You're at boxing, there's, you know, there's a bar, there's silent auction, it's fun, it's lights. But that right there is what we're all here for, and what we all want to do our part to just to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. So I have a follow-up question. Like, obviously you're interacting with real survivors of cancer, and, you know, you could be also a survivor yourself. And then you were mentioning before that people have like changed jobs, stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Like, so how has the sport of boxing and being part of Haymakers spilled over into the rest of your life? Like, how has this impacted you?
It's pretty incredible, in that you know, I always think to myself, I don't think there's any person in the world who's ever said, oh, I was so lucky to get cancer, because no one's ever said that. But what myself getting sick allowed to happen was, I think, was to kind of follow the path that I was meant to go on, and to just kind of be able to find really my purpose, which, you know, I challenged myself through the sport of boxing, through my own competition. And then, you know, Andrew Meyerson and I, my co-founder, he and I created Haymakers. And it's, for me, the beautiful part is that it fulfills me two ways. One, that I'm giving people an opportunity to fundraise for something that they're passionate about, like I am, to you know, fight against, but also to introduce the sport of boxing to people that wouldn't ever look at it twice. Like we have, you know, I always use the story. We have this one woman who, she signed up. She was, I think, in her late 30s at the time, maybe early 40s, and she had 4 kids. And she said, I'm signing up to do this. She had no boxing background, zero. She said, I'm signing up to do this because I just want to show my kids that I'm more than a chauffeur or someone who does their laundry. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she kicked ass. And it's just but she never was like, oh, I'm going to go to a boxing gym. You know, we just have the marriage of boxing and fighting back and fundraising. And she just kicked ass. And she now owns her own gym, and she helps train people. And she's a great mom. But it kind of helped fulfill her in a way that I think a lot of people look for. So it's really fulfilling, and having the opportunity to meet people and hear their stories and find out what's driving them, what's making them want to do this or to have this opportunity, or having them, you know, open up and share with us, is pretty powerful.
You know what I love about this, Julie, too, is that imagery that you shared of like people who are either survivors or going through treatment, holding up these signs. And then there's people who are like fighting on their behalf, right? It's a very powerful imagery of people who are willing to like throw themselves like fully into something. And I kind of think about how like many of us might, it's almost like we're passive observers in life, right? We're just like on the sidelines, we're kind of watching. And I have, as you're talking, there's this imagery, and it's like, even you said, you know, like your soul's touch, and like people are, right? We're like body, mind, spirit, like we're these creatures who are like all of this stuff combined. And you're like giving us this picture of why I think like why it's important to not be passive, like to throw ourselves into life and into something fully. And because it actually, I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's easy. It's really important for people to just give money. Like that's very important.
Yeah.
But how much more powerful it is for somebody to say, I'm going to take the time and the energy, and I'm going to like do this new thing, this new sport, and physically like throw myself into something. And I think like that, you know, like as we all like seek to make this world better, like what you're doing is a great picture of how we have all these different resources. Like we don't just have, hopefully we can give a little bit of money. We don't just have money. Like we have ourselves to give that are then like fighting for people, and they're fighting for the good and the health of people and for people who are on the margins or whatever. So what does it mean like for you? Like what have you learned about yourself and just as a person, you know, kind of who like, you know, physically kind of throws themselves in this as a cancer survivor too, like how have those two kind of merged, you know, like your own history, you put it into your passion, you brought them together. Have you learned anything about yourself in the process of doing this? Or
Yeah, I definitely, what I learned after treatment, I was, you know, mentally in kind of like a rough shape, and I was pretty depressed. But then once I kind of sat with it and realized, and then got into boxing, what I realized is I can do anything, you know, and you have to, there's this uncertainty in life regardless. And some people don't want to take that step in boxing, or it's scary because you can get hurt, you can get knocked out. There's that uncertainty. You can be the greatest boxer in the world, and every time you step in that ring, there is no guarantee that you're going to come out of there unscathed. And so I just really kind of learned about myself that there's nothing that I can't handle. And to just keep on living life to the fullest. And I feel extremely, extremely lucky and blessed to be able to do what I do, to meet the people, to hear their stories, because their stories are what inspire me to keep doing what I do. And they'll say to me, oh, you know, your story's this and that, and you're so great. And I say, well, your story is so great. And you're a reason why I want to keep doing this, to give more people the opportunity to do what we can to raise money for funds, but also to have you compete and have that experience once in your lifetime, to step in a ring in front of 2,000 people and have people chant your name it's chilling. It's incredible. And whether you win or you lose, people get lost sometimes, and they don't understand when I say it doesn't matter. It's not about you having your hand raised at the end of the night. Does everyone want to have that? Yes. Does everyone want to say, you know, I boxed one time in my life and I won? They do, but it's not about that. What it's about is you made it through 4 months of training. You raised possibly $10,000. Those dollars are directly going to make an impact on someone's life. You challenged yourself, you saw it through, you realize what you are capable of. If you don't realize what you're capable of after going through 4 months of training and in a sanctioned amateur boxing match, then you've got a lot to learn about yourself, because that usually is what'll do it. So it's really cool to be able to get to know people and go along on their journey with them, because I've been on my journey, and I'll always share that. But having the opportunity to kind of ride shotgun on all these other people's journeys is just incredible, and I'm very lucky that I get to do it.
You know, there's a phrase, and it feels a little bit trite, but I actually saw it on a sign yesterday. You know the phrase, Julie, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I saw a sign yesterday. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, except a bear. A bear will actually kill you. I actually saw that on a sign yesterday. I kind of chuckled.
Also that song too, right? So
right, yeah, but you know, I think what I really appreciate, Julie, is that, you know, you're like 20 years down the road, you know, about 20 years from when you had your diagnosis, and this is a good like just a good little snapshot of why, you know, why sharing our stories and kind of pushing into the kind of the difficult parts of our lives, why it's important, right? It was because now coming up, you have people who are going through cancer, you have family members who have loved one going through cancer, and you're there to share your story. You're there to give them a way to fight back. And if all of us were just to kind of hide all the dark spaces and say, oh, they're in our past, like cancer's in my past or whatever we deal with, then there's no opportunity then to encourage and bless those coming behind us who are dealing with it, right? And so
Sure.
I love it because it's a continuation of healing and of hope. Like you're offering, that's the Haymakers of hope part, right? Too, as well. But Anne, did you have a question before I ask my next? Because I don't want to.
Oh, well, not really. I just was going to make a comment from what you said, Julie, that's what I was thinking too, is what you are doing is, asking people to really go public with what they're doing. It's not like a hobby of like cross stitch, you know what I mean, where you do a little cross stitch and you might give it away to somebody, but and that's a very private, quiet thing. What they're doing is not private and not quiet. Like they're just going all out.
It's very, you're very vulnerable when you're in a boxing ring. It is you, and like I said before, someone who wants to win. They want to hurt you. They want to win. They trained as hard as you did. They want it as bad as you do. And you've got your coach in your corner. And I always say, you're not in there alone, but you're in there alone. You're taking in their training, and it's all on your shoulders. And you're very vulnerable. And at our events, it's 2,000 people watching this. And there's nowhere to hide in a boxing ring. It's go time. If you didn't put in your work, if you didn't do your conditioning, it shows. And there's no way to hide that. You can't, like you said about cross stitch, there's no way you can just tuck that little piece of thread behind and say, oh, they won't notice, and when Andrew and I originally came up with this idea, it was about 2008, 2009. And all of our friends, including me, were doing endurance events to raise money for all different reasons and diseases. And so it was marathons and triathlons, and there were some people doing 3-on-3 basketball tournaments and you name it. And we're in the boxing gym every day, and we're like, well, if people, I just gave $50 to 3 friends each to run a marathon, and I'm not going to go and watch them run the marathon. I'm just going to give them the money because I believe in them, and I know that they want to have this experience, and I support them. So for us, we were like, well, we love the sport of boxing. Why couldn't we do that and sell tickets so people actually come to see their friends? So cool. And we thought that, the first event we ever had was in 2011 at the Castle at Park Plaza in Boston. And we thought we'd have 400 people and, raise a little money for Dana-Farber. And we ended up having 1,000 people, and we raised almost $200,000. The first year fighters. And, Andrew and I were in shock, and we said to each other, we were like, wow, we grossly underestimated how much people want to see their friends get punched in the face.
That's amazing.
Because it was not only just through ticket sales, but also just pure donations of people just saying, hell yeah, there's something that resonates with people. Running a marathon it's hard. It is, you have to be committed to the training as well. But there's something about boxing that is just like, wow. And when it's your neighbor who isn't this, you don't think, everyone has an image in their mind of what a boxer looks like, right? That's what a box looks like. Rocky Marciano. That's it. That's the only person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you have your neighbor who's a stay-at-home mom of 4 people. And they look at her and they're like, I'm sorry, what did you say you're going to do in 4 months? I'll give you
Julie, I have to ask.
I'll give you money to do that.
Yeah, of course I'll do that. Yeah.
Well, I have to ask this question because I can't imagine I'm the only one thinking it right now. So do people ever get stage fright? Like when they're out there? So I'm thinking, so you train.
Like in the ring?
Like, yeah, right. So you train, you're ready to go. And then all of a sudden you're like, don't hurt me. Like, right?
It happens. Yeah.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's fight or flight is the thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone run, but there's fight, flight, and freeze.
Oh, okay.
And that does happen because the reality is, if you've never had the experience of fighting before or boxing before, I mean, you could have, fights growing up or whatever it is, but boxing, the sport of boxing, you don't know what's going to happen on fight night. You don't know how you're going to respond. It's the same way as running a marathon. You could have this great training and feel so great that day. And then as soon as you get run, you cramp up. You never know what's going to happen. So it does happen. Yeah. It does happen.
Okay, so Julie, what are you guys doing? What is Haymakers for Hope doing right now? Like, with the pandemic, and are you having any kind of events? Are you getting started again, or what does it look like now?
So Massachusetts just yesterday made an announcement that they will be pulling back any restrictions for venues originally we're looking at August is when things start to open up. So for the most part, we're eyeing an event in Q4 of this year. But unfortunately, like 2020, usually we have 5 events a year in 4 cities. We have 2 events in Boston, New York, DC, and then Denver, and we weren't able to host any of those events. But like any good boxer, we thought on our feet, we adjusted to the opponent, and we were able to host our very first ever golf tournament in October. We have our second one coming up in late May. We also hosted a turkey trot, virtual turkey trot, where we got about 400 people to sign up. And then we really thought outside the box to try and reach out to our community of, these aren't just run-of-the-mill people. It's people who really want to do something crazy. And we did a polar plunge in late February in New England. Yeah.
How many people participated in that?
The number of people, I think we had about 70. And collectively, for the most part, it took place mostly it was virtual. We mostly here in New England. We did have one person plunge in her tub with, I think, like 20 or something pounds of ice. Yeah. But collectively, I think we had about 70 people, and collectively we raised over $40,000.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're hoping next year, once everything kind of gets back to normal, we'll be able to continue these events. While 2020 has been very hard for us and we haven't been able to host our signature events, it allowed us to think outside the box and to kind of grow new opportunities to continue to boost up and grow our community of supporters, and to just keep having fun and trying to just make a difference.
Julie, do you have any plans to make any of these events virtual, or live stream, I should say, if people aren't near any of these major cities?
So we've never really thought about doing live stream, especially for like the boxing, but in terms of the virtual events, we did the polar plunge, and it was just you picked, it was 2 days. You could do it within 2 days. Yeah. We got tons of great content. We had somebody down in New Jersey go in Connecticut. We had we had a crew that went up to New Hampshire, and it's just about continuing to grow that community. But moving forward, again, 2020 showed us that we can do all kinds of things, and I wouldn't be surprised. But we're just looking forward to getting back to our roots of our in-person live events of boxing.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Yeah, I was like just thinking to invite all of our listeners, how they can participate even if they're not in your cities. So that'd be fun.
Yeah. Right now we're just kind of gearing up for our golf tournament right outside Boston, and then again Q4. Once, I would just urge people to go to haymakersforhope.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. That'll go out and keep you posted about anything and everything that we have going on. Hopefully soon that will be going out more and more often. And we'll be able to, we'll keep doing what we're doing to continue to get people involved.
Julie, go ahead.
I have a more of a fun question. So I think when you guys are going to fight somebody and the opponent, so from what I understand or guess is that you actually study them and study their moves and how they fight, so that you can then strategize.
So We do, so for as far as amateur boxing, we do things just a little bit differently, because what people are doing is so special, and they're raising a ton of money. We had one woman in New York City raise $220,000. So like, and whatever the dollar amount, it's, people are doing something incredibly special. So at the end of the day, we want people to have this experience, but we also want people to have a fair and competitive bout. So by USA Boxing rules, we have to make matches based on age and weight, and that's really it. But we go a little further and we take a look at height as well. You know, I have in the past had somebody who is 6'6", weight wise. I have somebody who's 5'6". I'm not going to make that match. So we take that into account, but also we watch people train in the gym. Some people pick up boxing quickly, which is odd because it's a really hard sport. And some people may have been doing fitness classes for years, but it doesn't translate into the sparring and they struggle a little bit. So that gives me an idea of who I can put with who. And then after 2 months of training, you actually spar your opponent at what we call media day. There's videos and cameras, and you know, we have, everyone spars each other and everyone's together, and that's where we create our intro videos. So you do get to spar your proposed opponent and get that experience of what it will be like on fight night with them. And it is helpful for first time fighters it kind of quells those nerves a little bit, because there is that fear of what's going to happen. And you do get to know your opponent. And we have people who, we've had opponents in the past who, you know, boxed on fight night and then we're out having breakfast the next day. Said, oh, let's meet for breakfast and coffee. Okay. And they remain friends, and some people go on vacation together. And so they forge this incredible friendship, which is very, very cool to see.
I love that. I could like picture somebody saying over eggs, hey, I'm really sorry I gave you that black eye.
Those conversations happen. Yep.
Right. So Julie, you know, so you've been doing this for over 10 years, right? And so what has been just the most joyful part of doing this? Like what's brought you the most joy as you've done Haymakers for Hope? And is it working with the people, or is it raising the money, or hearing stories, or what stands out to you?
Definitely raising the money is powerful, and brings me a lot of joy, just because I know that it's making a huge difference. But really, I think creating this community that we built, that is, you know, fighters, their supporters, our family of our ring card warriors, the trainers, just to have, you know, it takes a village. Andrew and I came up with this silly idea, and everyone else just kind of ran with it, to have this huge community that really just kind of gets together and makes these events happen. And knowing that there are people who still want to step in the ring and have that experience and do good and put that out into the world. I think that's what brings me the most joy, because you know, being connected to cancer and not always having great endings to certain stories is really, it can be very painful. So to know that we are building kind of this little like, you know, Andrew coined the phrase ass-kicking do-gooders, this group of people that just, we all get together, and it's just this amazing community. My best friend was dropping her dog at doggy daycare the other day, and she had a Haymaker shirt on, and she sees this girl, she lives in Rhode Island, and the girl says, oh, did you fight? My friend said, no, I'm just, you know, Julie's my best friend. She said, I fought in 2016 or something. And it's just this, she felt this connection to this stranger simply because she saw her t-shirt. And I think that's what brings me the most joy, is that I know that there's all these people out there that are just trying to make a difference.
That's so good. Okay, so Julie, so we can find you at haymakersforhope.org. And then are you on Instagram or Facebook as well?
We are, yes. Yep. Haymakers for Hope. And what is the Instagram? I'm the worst with Instagram. I don't even know how to use it. I think
we're going to link to it in our show notes. Yeah. Okay. We'll link to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, Julie. I have really appreciated this conversation, and I have appreciated just this visual that you've given us about, really fighting against like, this common enemy and using all of who we are to do good. And I love that phrase, ass kicking do-gooders. I think that's a great one. I'm going to start using it in real life. My husband
it's a great one.
Yeah, it's a great
That's
one.
what that's what that's what the people are. So
yeah,
they're amazing.
Yeah. So I guess we encourage you guys to, if you feel called to do this, then do it, right? Contact Julie and her team and go on the website. And if you feel like, kind of you want to try boxing and support a great cause, then we encourage you to do that. Otherwise, we encourage you guys all to just find ways to get involved in making our world a little bit better. And Julie, thanks for being on the podcast. And thanks for a great episode. And we hope you guys loved it. And if you did, share it with others and go back and listen to episode 1 with Chuck and Hannah. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. We'll see you guys next time.